Hi, Csaba here, and welcome to a very special edition of the Proven Sales Letter Breakdown series that I'm doing. And this one's special because today is my birthday. It's the 8th of February, and that's why I wanted to choose something really special, really funny for you to break down from the legendary Gary Halbert, one of my favorite copywriters ever, because let's just have some fun here, okay? A little bit. So, this one is... according to Dan Kennedy, this specific ad has been called the best lead generation ad like forever of all time, probably, because in this one, the great late Gary Halbert sent out an ad in the LA paper and probably other places as well to basically advertise himself to women. And this ad just showcases Gary's personality, wit, humor, and specific copywriting style for which everybody loves him so much. And even to this day, I challenge you, I dare you to show me someone who can write so almost effortlessly and vulnerably and just share so many things about him or herself than Gary did with this ad. And sorry for the layout of this. This was the only swipe that I could find, so it's a bit hard to read, and obviously we're not going to read it at all like everything, but I'm gonna zoom in to some parts and I'm gonna explain why that specific thing works and also why I think it's genius. But again, this ad probably would need some modifications today because let's just say it's not so politically correct nowadays, but it's still something that from a copywriting perspective is genius, and it just makes Gary such a likable person, in my opinion, especially in those times. And remember, he was living in Los Angeles in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and like for that climate, this was one of the best ways to actually find women that he was interested in, especially because he was well known to not really have long-term success with his women. So he has been divorced at least twice. He has had a lot of girlfriends, and even though he was a kind-hearted man, there probably, like a psychologist would have told you more stuff about his love life, but just it's safe to assume that he wanted to use his copywriting skills to basically shortcut his way to better quality women and better relationships. Okay, so first of all, right at the beginning, before the headline itself, we have, "Are you more than just a pretty face?" And this is immediately like a pattern interrupt because this whole ad is about qualification. The main theme here is that Gary wants to qualify and disqualify people more specifically. So he wants to disqualify as many bad fits to him as possible. And then there's a bunch of things that pre-qualify 90% of people, or even 95, but then the 5% that remain, those are the ones who Gary really wants. So it's just like an exclusive lead generation ad. And it's like that, like the end goal of this ad, the call to action, is for women who fit the specific criteria that Gary wants. Basically, they write to him and they start a conversation to see if it's a good fit for a relationship or not. But are you just another pretty face? It's also super relevant, especially in those times, because he's obviously most people would think that he's a sugar daddy because of an ad like this, but no, he's not looking for gold diggers. Okay, he isn't looking for just beautiful women who are empty inside or who don't really have the characteristics that he wants. So the headline goes, "Generous, creative businessman wants to find a hot, sexy woman with a good sense of humor." So generous, this just symbolizes that he has money. Creative, this means that he isn't a boring person. Businessman, this is like he has a normal career. Wants to find, this is like what he wants. Hot, sexy woman, so these are his desires, like what Gary wants in women. But it's not enough to be hot and sexy. He also wants them to have a good sense of humor, so that this also shows that Gary is not shallow, but he is also not looking for shallow people, because he was a funny guy. I think he liked to live life with gusto. Okay, John Colton, one of his mentees, probably the most famous mentee of John Cult, of Gary Halbert, always talks about Gary having the gusto, living life like that. And this just shows, and there's a certain type of woman or person who goes well with a person who has this type of gusto, okay? And probably that's why he repeats the humor part many times over. So in the beginning we have, are you a soft, sexy, exciting lady who would like to have a taste of part-time paradise? If so, read on. So again, we have qualification elements everywhere we have, because this is what Gary actually wants. He wants a soft, sexy, exciting lady. And the what's in it for them part, for the ladies, it's like part-time paradise. So it's what they would want. This is to create desire for people to actually read on. If so, read on. You see, it's the qualification. And then he basically introduces himself. He says, my name is Gary, and I am looking for a very special woman who would like to share a few small but exciting adventures with me, who wants to enjoy a part-time slice of a good life. Are you that woman? Maybe, maybe not. The first thing it depends on is me. You see, if I'm not your kind of guy, then what I have to offer may not be your idea of how life should be lived. So these things, it just sounds interesting right off the bat, and he doesn't come away as needy at all. Like, he's not needy at all. In fact, he is disqualifying the leads. And I like this subtle, well, not so subtle, this quite explicit frame shift, because in most situations when you, let's say, want to sell your services to a client or a lead, then usually if you're needy, those leads have a lot of potential other services to choose from. Like, they don't necessarily have to choose you, but you have to choose clients into your life, because that's how you make money. And the same thing with dating. So especially for men, we all know that in most cases, in the dominant cases, men have to chase women. But this just flips the script. This makes them so that they actually have to chase Gary. And especially, he's targeting the target audience who isn't really used to chasing men. So he's targeting beautiful, young women who know that they have a lot of power and they're not used to chasing men. But with this ad, that's what he's kind of getting at, and I think it's really powerful. So then he starts talking about me. So this ad, again, is strongly qualifies people, just like a lead generation ad. And basically what Gary does is that, well, it's about him, so it's not typical copywriting, because in typical copywriting it's all about you, the reader. But this one, as it tries to disqualify people who are even lazy to read the whole thing, he can get away with it. So first, he describes how cool of a lifestyle he lives. So basically this builds value, builds up his value as the product. Here, Gary is the product, okay? And we want to get customers who would, let's say, buy the product. So first of all, he describes some features that Gary has, like he has a cool lifestyle, and a bunch of other very specific details here. Then he describes how he basically relaxes life a bit. He enjoys it. He likes his work, but he isn't like a workaholic at all. So but then he also describes his passion for work. So he basically describes all the purpose he gets from his work, and this just makes it seem like Gary is successful and he's like a fulfilled man. Like, the only thing that's missing from his life is a good love life, like a good partner. And he even says this explicitly, like, hey, I have everything, but the problem is that after a long days of work, what do I get? Nada, nothing. I'm there home alone, and it bugs me. And then very nicely, he describes the main problem of this ad, because everything has to have a problem. And I like it how it's super honest and vulnerable. So I'm just gonna read you this little paragraph here, because I think it's definitely worth it. So finally, after all this work, I go home. Just a second here, guys. I go to work, and boy, No, actually, I want to read this one. Sorry, it's like this Google little preview window is jumping all over the place. So he says, it's quite a workload. And what do I do after I stop working? What is my big reward for all this running and grunting and pumping iron and stretching and training and writing and thinking and solving and creating and caring and so on? And I guess this is how he would also feel. Nothing. That's what. Nada. Zip. No doodly squat. No Miller time. No drugs. No sex. No rock and roll. Nothing. Not even a little wine and some classical music. Why? The answer is simple. You see, for the last 3.5 months, I have been spending my evenings and weekends on a marathon on non-stop sulking. And why have I been sulking? Good question. And once again, the answer is simple. And then he describes the story of how basically he was married, or like he was in a relationship with a woman who he probably loved, and then it was just not meant to be. They broke up, and his heart was broken, and that's why he was sulking for some time, but now he's ready to move on and to start a new relationship, okay? But he's a bit wary as well. So I think that this in itself is kind of an appeal as well, because a lot of women want to save. They have an internal motivation to save these powerful guys who have despair in their hearts, and they want to be the princess that basically takes the breath away of that guy or something, So not everybody, of course, but a lot of people have this, and I think that Gary is also appealing to this little motive to some degree, but then he also does some preemptive objection handling by saying, that I'm not a creep or something. I'm just honest with you guys. I just, want to meet someone. And I figured, since my craft is copywriting, why shouldn't I write an ad about this? So it's transparent as well. And there's a reason why behind the ad itself. And it's very important to have a reason why behind your sales argument, because it just makes everything logical. Sure, you appeal to emotions, but then it also makes everything logical. And then, I love this, by the way, Gary basically describes a few types of women, basically 1, 2, 3, 4 types of let's just say personas of exes that he had, and this is a way to disqualify immediately people, women, leads who kind of fit this type of persona. And first we have Zelda the Princess, and I like how he gives a fantasy name to all this, like Zelda the Princess. So, and then describes who this type of persona is and what the problem was with her. And after reading these, everything just seems so raw, and it's so real, guys. It's not bullshit at all. Think about it. When he's talking about Zelda the Princess, he says, well, what the hell, on some days I'm a pushover. She got what she wanted, and I must admit she gave me one of the most thorough screwings I've ever had in my life. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in bed. So, it's just one thing that somebody screw him over, and he wants to avoid it. Then we have Sherry the tragic, a problematic person. He wants to avoid this. Then we have Karen the would-be prostitute. This is just what the fuck type of story. So it's you can't make this stuff up, okay? So who would make this up? And there's a bunch of people who have crazy internal psychological issues, or they've been abused, or they just need some therapy, and obviously, since Gary used to live life with gusto, he also attracted problematic people in his life. But this is something that probably made him a better copywriter, because he had more adventures in life, more weird quirks of human personality. Then we have Claudia the actress, this one who's this person was good in all counts, but she was too much of a careerist, and he didn't want this. So yeah, he just disqualifies people, and then he also gives a reason why he created this whole ad. And then, very smartly, he moves on to basically give a checklist of disqualifying checklist to people. So at this point, if someone's reading, you better believe that they are a so-called warm lead. So they're like 90% or 80% of people have been turned up at this point, but like what he's looking for is the rest of the 20%. So it's like the 20-80 principle, the Pareto principle, in which 80% of your best results will come from like 20% of your efforts. Okay, so that's what he's going for. He wants to disqualify 80% of people to get the 20%, the creme de la creme, and then he's gonna like choose from those as well. But obviously, like, even less people are going to remain until the end, and then even less are going to answer the call to action and stuff like that. It's just like a funnel, okay? So it's just like a numbers game, but he can't lose with it, because so what? Like, he pays for the ads or something, but like all it takes is one person. Think about it. All it takes is one single person for this whole thing to be worth it. So the upside is pretty high, and the downside, well, he might get some criticism and everything, but if I remember correctly, Gary, like, this ad was quite the shocker even then, and he got invited to a bunch of radio stations to talk about this ad. He got interviewed by a lot of other people as well, and he was quite the talk of the town. And you know what? I'm absolutely sure that this also brought him a lot of extra business as well from clients, from companies, from brands, okay? So I think it was totally worth it. So 7 things Gary does not want from a woman. So yeah, I mean, how can you be more direct than that? This is just, you know, it just makes women chase Gary, and then what he's absolutely not looking for, to like not waste each other's time. And I think it's smart, because his time is also limited. So first of all, death or disease, and then, you know, remember that AIDS was a big thing back then, and he basically just wants to disqualify people who might have some either chronic disease or like sexually transmitted diseases. Drug dramas, so again, think about it, 80s in Los Angeles, a lot of people have been like overdosing on cocaine and taking heroin and a bunch of other things. So he says that, you know, it's okay to get a little high sometimes, but like the emphasis isn't the little, okay? So probably he had like ex-girlfriends who had drug problems as well. Desperate dilemmas, again, he's not looking for people who are so-called drama queens. Marriage, I think this is really honest and upfront, because he's been married at least twice, and that I know of up until this point at least. He also mentions it in the ad itself, but like, this is not what he's looking for. So why waste time with someone who's looking for marriage? It's not a good fit for both of them. I don't want a sexual swinger, so like, you know, he's not looking for extremely promiscuous women, but at the same time he also doesn't want a sexual prude. So I like how, you know, he's setting the standard with this, but then immediately counters this with this, because he doesn't want either of them. He wants, like, let's say, a healthy amount of sexuality, okay? And I really like how everything is just so, like, if you read Gary's copy, it's the smoothest of maybe all copywriters. It's so honest and so vulnerable and so to the point, and so like, as a conversation, as if you were having a conversation with him. Like, I honestly think that if you were to read this ad, and I definitely encourage you to do so, you will feel like you know Gary. You will feel like, you know, he's a drinking buddy of yours, and he has been telling you about his women problems at a bar at a Friday evening, okay? So this is really powerful stuff, guys. And then finally, I don't want a woman who can't stand prosperity. And this is weird a little bit, may sound funny, but actually a lot of people have this hidden money block. Like, a lot of people are addicted to failing, and if they start experiencing success, too much success in their life, they start sabotaging themselves. And I can totally understand this. This is more of a more complex psychological phenomenon. You should look it up if you're interested in this. But like, I think it's a really good idea to be honest and upfront about this. And then he even wrote a little poem here which says, if you don't want to be good and just want the bad, don't waste your time by answering this ad. And then, you know, Gary even like criticizes himself by saying, good Lord, that was corny, wasn't it? So yeah, he's vulnerable, he's honest, and he's reasonable. So I think there's a lot to love here in this type of thing. And then what he does in the end, because at this point, you know, still some women might be wondering, like should I answer this? Should I not answer this? He introduces even more humor, describing what he actually wants, you know, like what he's looking for. Like he's looking for women between the ages of 25 to 35 with a certain type of figure, and like older or younger is still can be okay, you know. What he likes in women, basically. So that's it. He gives specifications. Again, that's it, just for people to self-qualify. So this is kind of like a little test, a little self-qualification test. And again, today, you know, you might look at it as sexist, for example, or something. And it is, in a sense, obviously. But like, it's just like what some other like women would do in reverse or something. So I still appreciate that it's honest, okay? And I'm not saying this would probably work so well today, but you know what? Actually, if you were to like use Tinder, if you're a guy watching this and you were to use Tinder and you were to create a more concise version of this, I think you would definitely get a lot of response with it, okay? Because it's different. Nobody does it. It just shows that you're a real person who is willing to be vulnerable, who has standards, who's not a pushover, and who's interesting, you know, who has to be conquered. And as I said, there are tons of psychological studies that show that, you know, especially very attractive women, they love a challenge many times because they feel on top of the world many times, but then if something comes along that is a challenge, then they want it even more. They're attracted to it. So then we have one portion which says, okay, after all this qualification, like here's what you get if you get with me. You get like generosity from me, you get I will take you to nice vacations. But then he's saying that, you know, I'm not a chump and I'm not gonna be your like sugar daddy, and I'm not looking for a gold digger, but like know that if I like people, then I'm good to them and I take care of them and stuff like that. So if this sounds reasonable to you, that's what he says at the end. And he also includes more elements to like showcase how he's not a creep, okay? So how he's like a real person, and why, you know, women shouldn't be afraid of this, like he's a psycho or something. And these are all objection handling elements. And then he even trivializes these things. So he says, you know, please believe me, I'm not a psycho and I'm not a creep with this. Like, if you want to have just casual sex in Los Angeles, then you don't have to like, I wouldn't have to write an ad like this. I only have to like respond to them because those ads are everywhere. And then again, I like how he uses a lot of humor, and we all know how humor is very sexy. It's one of the most wanted qualities in men by women, because it just showcases wit and intelligence and certain kind of playfulness. So he gives a few cool examples, like psychotic white woman wants to be sodomized by 12 Cuban truck drivers and a boa constrictor while husband watches and salivates. Call 1-800 something. Or like this, 96-year-old lady with youthful outlook wants to meet vegetarian non-smoker to discuss saving the whales and other ecological concerns. Or pleasingly plump 590-pound woman wants to meet sincere, fun-loving man to care for her and her lovely 18 children. So obviously these are over-the-top examples, but like with this, I think he makes people laugh, okay? And the women who are still reading this ad, you better believe that they're gonna be attracted to Gary very much so after this as well. So after it, you know, we have some closing elements. He just sets expectations by saying that, you know, for this, like they have to apply themselves. There's nothing something like that. They just have to write to him and send a full frame, like a full-bodied picture as well. So that's it. And then I like the last words, which is just like, please send, you know, an outreach to me. And will this work? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe we'll click and maybe we won't. But at the very least, you won't be writing to some sick psychopath, and maybe, just maybe, it'll all turn out great. and then we have the major call to action basically. So yeah, I think this is a genius of an ad, and not many people can pull it off, first, but second, it's just Gary's style is something really, really unique even to this day. And sure, he has a freaking big ego, that's for sure. I mean, who would write an ad about himself and publish it like this? But like, hey, if he's like a copywriting genius, why shouldn't he try it? And I'm sure that he got tons of good leads from it, and probably, you know, maybe the love of his life as well after it. Maybe not, maybe yes, I don't know. But it's a gem of an ad, and I definitely encourage you to hand copy it, just so that you can at least see how good writing in copywriting seems like, because a lot of people think that you have to write all these complicated, aggressively marketing words, but no, this is what persuades people, that moves people, something unique, something different, something that anybody can understand, something that like grabs you immediately and produces emotions. And sure, like, I'm certain that he also got a lot of flack for this ad, definitely, but he also got a lot of devotion immediately because of it. And that's what you want. Like, in order to be successful at life, at business, at anywhere, at relationships, you have to be polarizing in some way. Because if you're vanilla, everybody's gonna be like, oh, that's nice, but like, I don't care. That's it. And you have to be polarizing to some degree. And Gary was a master of it. And he was, frankly, very, very brave as well to do this. So I hope you enjoyed this. I sure did. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. And as a little birthday gift to me, feel free to like leave a like on this video, and maybe a comment with a few thoughts, like what's the number one thing that resonated with you from this ad. And let's just start a discussion about it, because I think it's something really, really creative and funny, and not many people can replicate the success that he had. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.